One introduction RFK view: the United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only. For home building and furniture building, for just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the Eco-Design Wood Stove, and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RFK view: purple air PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.
Hi, my name is Lily. Andrew gave you the intro to residents against wood smoke emission particulates and their concern for air pollution from indoor residential wood burning. Residents against wood smoke emission particulates, or RFK, would like every near neighbor of an indoor residential wood burner whose wood smoke enters their yards and sickens the near neighbors to have a purple air PM 2.5 monitor hanging from the eaves of their home to measure the level of PM 2.5 entering their yards. That measurement of air pollution should be used as evidence of unnecessary air pollution, and each indoor residential wood burner should be shut down based on that evidence, one indoor residential wood burner at a time if necessary. The presentation by Andrew ended at 2 minutes 5 seconds. The same presentation by Emma starts at 2 minutes 3 seconds before the end of this podcast. So I am Lily, your timekeeper, and you can start the next podcast at 2 minutes 5 seconds in if you would not like to see the presentation by Andrew a second time. This presentation by me, Lily, ends at 5 minutes in. What you will see in the main content of this RFK podcast will be news about air pollution from indoor residential wood burning, and how that air pollution is being combated by ordinary people just like you who are unfortunately near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners at this time. There will also be news about unnecessary and highly polluting use of wood as fuel in industrial wood burners and preventable air pollution from wood burning wildfires. There will also be news about air pollution from PM 2.5 from gas-powered cars. There will also be news about airborne diseases which are also preventable with vaccines such as COVID-19 and measles and whooping cough, to name just a few. In 2025, Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates is also concerned with combating the Trump destruction of government funding for programs which protect human health through the Department of Health and Human Services, and Trump destruction of programs which fund the science and medical research plan to protect human health from preventable illnesses. Protecting human health is a patriotic act, and our defense against enemies is weakened if we are not as healthy as we can be. Heat pump rebates are now offered by the federal government, distributed through the eligible United States, are available in 2025, and are the best, cleanest, and now cheapest alternative to indoor residential wood burning if that burning is actually done to purportedly save money. Wind and solar as sources of the electricity that powers heat pumps and electric cars is also cheaper than burning wood. The adverse health effects that are caused by indoor residential wood burning also come at a cost to near neighbors, both in shortening and ending their lives, and in actual hospital, clinic, and funeral costs. Instead of being compensated monetarily, near neighbors should instead be able to achieve immediate relief by stopping indoor residential wood burning in their hyper-localized neighborhoods, which relief readings from purple air PM 2.5 monitors used as evidence of air pollution will help them achieve. Welcome to news about hopeful scientific and medical achievements that will also help us achieve the goal of clean air to breathe.
Webisode 57DHXP, July 30th, 2025. The threat Trump accounts could pave way to privatizing Social Security. Inside Medicine Newsletter, July 30th, 2025. A summary of key points and highlights from the Lounge of the Doctors with guests Dr. Offit and Professor Dorit Reiss, aided by ChatGPT Vaccine Law Safety and the RFK Junior attack on Science 0216. What is the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program? We opened with a foundational overview of the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, VICP, a no-fault system designed to quickly and fairly compensate people with credible claims of vaccine-related injuries. Dorit Reiss explained that it protects both claimants and vaccine manufacturers by streamlining the process and avoiding adversarial court proceedings. Dr. Offit added historical context. Without the VICP lawsuits nearly destroyed the vaccine industry in the 1980-08-02, the DPT crisis that triggered the VICP. Offit revisited the 1982 DPT Vaccine Roulette panic, which sparked a wave of litigation that decimated the U.S. vaccine manufacturing base. Later research debunked the claims of the film, showing that children featured in it had underlying genetic conditions, but the damage was done, and the VICP was born out of necessity to preserve vaccine production in the U.S. 1341. Unavoidably unsafe legal language misused by Anti Vaxxers Reiss unpacked the misunderstood legal term unavoidably unsafe, which anti-vaccine activists weaponize to suggest vaccines are dangerous. In reality, the term reflects legal doctrine. Some products carry inherent risks, but offer overwhelming benefits. Courts have repeatedly rejected the idea that this language undermines vaccine mandates. 1557, the oral polio vaccine, a case study in risk-benefit policy shifts. Offit walked us through how the U.S. switched from inactivated to oral polio vaccines in the 1960s, which successfully eliminated polio, but at the cost of rare vaccine-induced polio cases. The country reversed course. In 2000, the lesson science evolves and policy should to 2015. What happens if the VICP is dismantled? Reiss laid out the grim scenario. If the VICP ends, claimants would be forced into regular courts with higher burdens of proof. Many would receive nothing. Vaccine makers, already operating on thin profit margins, might exit the market to avoid costly litigation. Offit called this the RFK Junior most dangerous move. Yet 2400 religious and medical exemptions, misused loopholes. We examined the explosion of religious and medical vaccine exemptions, particularly after California eliminated personal belief exemptions. Offit emphasized how AAP and other groups are now pushing to eliminate non-medical exemptions altogether, especially in the face of rising measles deaths. 3006. Will flu shots still be covered this fall? Reiss addressed reader concerns about vaccine access under the RFK administration. She believes flu shots will remain covered by private insurance and Medicare for now, but access to other routine vaccines like HPV or Hep B could be a greater risk. She suggested parents might consider accelerating vaccine schedules just in case. 3300. Want to get the flu shot sooner or later? We revisited a controversial but evidence-backed position I took in the New York Times. Waiting until November or December may be better than getting the flu shot in August due to waning effectiveness. That said, uncertainty over future coverage may tilt the balance in favor of getting it early. 3060. For what is happening at the FDA and VRBPAC? Offit described how his advisory panel at FDA has been sidelined. RFK Junior canceled meetings, replaced ACIP members with anti-vaccine voices, and cut expert input from key decisions. Offit warned that the traditional public process data review public input is disappearing. 4042. Can the new direction of the ACIP undermine school mandates? Reiss clarified that ACIP recommendations do not automatically set school policies, but if coverage gaps arise because insurers stop paying, schools may be reluctant to mandate those vaccines. That is the backdoor to grade access. Then say mandates are unworkable. 4502. Legal violations and bad governance. Reiss detailed how the administration is skirting the Administrative Procedure Act, firing ACIP members by op-ed, canceling public meetings, and issuing vaccine policy changes via tweet. Length videos. None of this meets legal or ethical standards of transparency and deliberation. 4902. COVID boosters. Substantive shift. Broken process. Narrowing COVID vaccine recommendations to high-risk groups may be scientifically sound, but RFK Jr. and his deputies are making these decisions without proper procedures. Dr. Fiona Havers resigned from the CDC in protest after RFK summarily overruled prior ACIP positions. That is deeply troubling. 5300. Final words. Data democracy. And what comes next? We close with gratitude to both guests. Dr. Offit can be found on his Substack, Beyond the Noise. Professor Reiss contributes to Skeptical Raptor. Both emphasize the stakes ahead. Without facts, law, and public process, the vaccine system risks unraveling. Headlines. The New York Times. United States presidential race in 2028. California. What the Kamala Harris decision for governor means for 2028. The New York Times. Aviation lack of safety. Trump administration NTSB details evidence in fatal crash at Reagan National Airport. The New York Times. California coast tsunami earthquake. Why did such a powerful earthquake generate such a weak tsunami? The New York Times. Health. A 30-minute strength workout for runners. Health. How can I avoid burnout at work? Health. And the right opinion. Why the right is obsessed with thinness. The New York Times. Health. What are the health benefits of sunshine? Health. What to eat and drink for a good night's sleep. Medicine. Dementia. Health. Healthy lifestyle can help people at risk for dementia. Study finds. The New York Times. Medicine and Health. What to know about hand, foot, and mouth disease. The New York Times. Medicine and Health. The worst habits for your back according to spine surgeons. The New York Times. Medicine and Science. Opinion. Why rising rates of autism and ADHD might be a good sign. The New York Times. Nebraska biofuels. Trump and air polluting biofuels. Explosion at Nebraska biofuel plant kills 3, including 2 girls. The New York Times. New York City gun violence. Julia Hyman-Rudin, employee killed in NYC shooting, recalled for her life. The New York Times. New York City gun violence. Park Avenue killer bought rifle for $1,400 from his casino boss. The New York Times. New York City gun violence. Wesley Lou Patner, Blackstone executive and mentor, killed in NYC shooting. The New York Times. Trump and air polluting fossil fuels candidate. Trump promised oil executives a windfall. Now they are getting it. The New York Times. Trump appointment approved. Senate approves the Trump pick for top counterterrorism post. The New York Times. Trump carve out stock trading barring for Congress advances. Bill barring stock trading for Congress advances with Trump carve out. The New York Times. Trump and Epstein fallout. Trump says Epstein stole underage victim from Mar-a-Lago spa. The New York Times. Trump and Russian influence. In 2016, opinion. Brennan and Clapper. The Trump administration is rewriting history of Russia. In 2016, the New York Times. Trump and Social Security privatization in the future. Treasury Secretary says Trump accounts could pave way to privatizing Social Security. The New York Times. Trump and Social Security privatization in the future. Trump announces healthcare record system for consumers. The New York Times. Trump tariffs. Trump targets copper with tariffs, though not as aggressively as expected. The New York Times. Trump threats loyalty. Enforcer Laura Loomer targets additional officials. The New York Times. Trump threats and Federal Reserve. Fed keeps rates steady despite internal divisions and political pressure. The New York Times. Trump threats and the Federal Reserve. See how often too. Fed governors have dissented on a rate change vote. The New York Times. Trump and universities. Another search for a bribe to Trump. Brown University makes a deal with the White House to restore funding. The New York Times. Texas Republicans. Trump threats unveil gerrymandered House map, trying to please Trump. The New York Times. Virginia. Danville violence against a politician. Rozep view the Danville nonpartisan council system means Vogler has never run under a party banner, but his 2022 appointment by GOP Governor Glenn Youngkin to the Virginia Small Business Commission and his ties to conservative groups like the Faith and Freedom Coalition, which called him a Republican, suggest GOP leanings from the article headline. Virginia City Councilman Lee Vogler is set on fire in attack. Police say. The New York Times. Canada measles cases surpass U.S. in the province of Alberta. Officials push for state of emergency. The New York Times. Brazil and Trump threats. Trump escalated his feud with Brazil. The New York Times. Brazil and Trump threats. Trump tariffs. U.S. hits Brazil with 50 tariffs and sanctions in sharp escalation. The New York Times. India. Trump tariffs. Trump threatens India with steep tariffs, including penalty over Russian oil. The New York Times. South Korea. Trump lowers tariffs to 15 in trade deal with South Korea. Live updates. The New York Times. Taiwan and Trump threats. Trump administration told the Taiwan president to avoid U.S. stopover. The New York Times. Headlines. The Guardian. Climate change technology of renewable energy. Rozep view wind and solar power are clean renewable energy. Biofuels including wood burning are dirty renewable energy. From the article headline. The renewable energy revolution is a feat of technology. Rebecca Solnit. The Guardian. Minnesota political attack aimed at Minnesota Governor Democrat Tim Walz. Minnesota calls in National Guard after capital city slammed by digital attack. U.S. News. The Guardian. Stephen Colbert on the Trump Scotland trip, a grift for the whole family. Late night TV roundup. The Guardian. Trump and Epstein fallout. Barack Obama and the Trump untrue conspiracy theory debunked. Rozep view the Trump conspiracy theory seems to be a planted distraction from the Trump-Epstein relationship. From the article headline. Ex-CIA agent hits back at Tulsi Gabbard after she accused Obama of treasonous conspiracy against Trump. U.S. politics. The Guardian. Trump threats and the Federal Reserve take a deep dive into the inflation numbers and the RBA decision not to cut rates seems inexplicable. Greg Jericho. The Guardian. Virginia council member attacked and set on fire. Virginia. The Guardian. Women hacked online for criticizing men. There are no secrets on the internet. Just ask the women who entrusted their data to T. R. Wamadawi. The Guardian. Woody Guthrie. Rozep view. In 1954, Woody Guthrie wrote a protest song called Old Man Trump about the Woody Guthrie landlord, who was the father of Donald Trump. It was covered by Eric Guerin with ukulele in 2025 and put on YouTube 2 months ago. From the article headline. He wrote 5 songs about washing dishes. The lost Woody Guthrie gems rescued by AI. Woody Guthrie. The Guardian. Brazil. Rozep view Trump threat of Brazil tariffs to protect his authoritarian friend. From the article headline. Trump accused of attack on Brazilian democracy after sanctioning Bolsonaro trial judge. Brazil. The Guardian. Scotland. The best joke award has gone is the Edinburgh Fringe, taking all the pun out of comedy. Anya Ryan. The Guardian. United Kingdom. Britain. Trump and crypto push. The Guardian view on the Trump crypto push. Britain is right to say no to digital currency politics. Editorial. The Guardian. United Kingdom. Climate change. Farmers confronted to help future generations. I felt hopeful about my future for my daughter. The farmers fixing our eco-crisis in pictures, art, and design. The Guardian. United Kingdom strike of doctors. My message to doctors after 5 days of strikes. Work with us. If you go to war with us, you will lose. Wes Streeting. The Guardian. United Kingdom strike by doctors. The West Streeting and rule tactics may have won against the doctors, but more strikes are coming. Polly Smythe. The Guardian. India. Trump tariffs. Trump imposes 25 tariff on India plus penalty over ties to Russia. Trump tariffs. The Guardian. Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. Saying the quiet part out loud. Roar. Hi, I am Tiger. Our human asked us to get up from our naps and start Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. She gave us a list of internet allies which we will post for her here.
Hi, I am Leone. It is better for your mental fitness to go to these websites than to go to bro sites for advice. Substack letters from an American. Heather Cox Richardson. Substack your local epidemiologist. The Midas Touch. The Guardian. The New York Times.
One introduction. Rozep view the United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only for home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree. But it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen, and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM2.5, and PM2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lung, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the Eco-Design Wood Stove and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. ROSEP View Purple Air PM2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.